Welcome back and welcome to week 1, video number 1, why short-term rentals, and we're going to break it all down for you.
So in this video, we're going to cover the benefits of choosing to short-term rent a property versus a long-term lease. And then in the next video, we will help you make key decisions to get it up and running. You may be deciding what type of property you want to STR and if you already own a home or want a second or even multiple properties. So we want to help you understand all the differences and benefits of setting up a property as an STR versus doing a long-term lease.
So first, I want to share the key benefits of short-term rentals with you. So number 1 is you have maximum income potential. If you get your rate up as high as you can and you have maximum occupancy, you can make 3 to 4 times the amount of a typical lease, or even more than that. And you're also not binded to lease legalities, don't have to worry about getting sued as much, or squatters. You also have flexibility of usage, so you can have family and friends use it. You can also use it as a vacation property. And you have additional options to rent it daily on sites like Sharespace when it is not rented for the nightly scenario.
Here are a few key scenarios that you should definitely consider. So number 1, you currently own a home that you live in. This will cover travel expenses, vacations, and other sorts of supplemental income. So this is one of the most common and great uses of having your own home set up with an STR license. So imagine that $5,000 vacation you've been wanting to plan and knowing someone will rent your home for that week and cover most or all of your expenses, or maybe even profit from it. So we will get into the best ways to set up your home for this type of lifestyle. The next one is just supplemental income in general. So this is one of the most useful options when dealing with any financial issues that may come up, or just subsidize some of your income throughout the year. If you have the option to stay at a family home or with friends or go camping or other free places cheaper than your daily rate, you will make a profit. And then there are daily and hourly rentals. So this is through Sharespace currently that we use. You can also rent while you're at work or out of town by the hour. So if you work remotely, you can go to your favorite place to work for the day and collect the income and rent a room out, or just your house out.
The second scenario is if you currently own a second income property or you're planning on purchasing a new property as a full-time STR. So for this option, you can really maximize the income. Typically, the cost per day versus a lease can, like I said, be up to 2 to 4 times more per day, especially on holidays, popular vacation times like spring break or summer, or even ski season depending on your location. Or maybe your property is in a large city like we are here in Los Angeles and have major events going on such as concerts, popular tourist attractions, or sporting events. Just a couple popular weeks alone can cover a large part of your mortgage or rent. You also have flexibility to use it as a vacation home, whether it's prime season in your location or to fill in the empty time that your area might be slow and have minimal bookings. So you can fill in the downtime, and it's also a great opportunity to do any upgrades, maintenance, check in with any local managers, and just continue to fine-tune your rental. And next for this scenario is lease legalities. So since the property is an STR, it is essentially like a boutique hotel. And so the good thing is you're not binded to typical lease rules and legalities. So for example, like I mentioned, tenants can't squat and they do not have typical renters' rights. So this is not a lease or permanent housing, but a temporary contract for a vacation home. And it is only legally used for the agreed short-term duration. So you are protected by the STR site insurance on most platforms, such as Airbnb and VRBO, for any damage up to $1 million. But be sure to always check any listing sites to make sure that you understand and are aware of the coverage. Regardless, you should always have and carry typical homeowner's insurance and make sure that the policy covers rentals to be safe. Then you also have the monthly booking option. So if you're not planning to use it during the month, it will guarantee you a month of full income, and this has become more and more popular for a couple of reasons. You can do a monthly discount to get more of these bookings, and you don't actually even need an STR permit for this, which is a great option if you have a property or want a property where they don't allow STRs. So some people are working remote and want to live in different areas for a month or more, and there's also many people who need a temporary home while they move to a new city, build a new house, or just have some sort of temporary housing needs or are doing a remodel or things like that. So you can usually count on almost at least double, even triple the monthly income versus a typical month-to-month lease. And without the contract, chances of somebody not leaving.
So the third scenario we got here is a short-term rental with a rented property. So if you ask and negotiate a contract with your landlord in an area that allows you to, for the landlord to acquire an STR license, you can legally short-term rent your rental. So maybe you just make an agreement with your landlord to share in some of the profits to help that facilitate an agreement, but just be sure they are aware. You will see this in our examples of applications. You can do daily, you can do hourly rentals through Sharespace or on your own, but be sure the property owner is aware that you are sharing the space. There is a lot of demand in popular cities and locations to use your home for commercials, films, photo shoots, and other location needs from companies producing material. Just, use it to cover your travel expenses, vacations, as we mentioned before. But again, be sure this is negotiated and clear with your landlord. So the landlord will have to go to the city, get the permit, and that's what you will upload to Airbnb and places, and then obviously have a separate contract. So if you are leasing and you happen to have a lease in a mixed use zoned area, which is kind of like our studio here, that's really, really good because typically it's really easy to get short-term rental permits and is one of the best options to use for multiple applications, such as office events and just getting the license is a lot easier with mixed use, and then it also appeals to a lot of corporate companies and event planners and photo studios and just people that need space. So if you find, as an option, a commercial use lease mixed use place, those are always nice because you can use it like we do for work and then rent it out through whether it's a daily rate. Well, typically it's going to be a daily rate because you can't stay here, but anyway.
Yeah, so that's a great option if you lease a property and you want to do more of the Sharespace.
For this first chapter, we've come to the conclusion here. So managing a property as an STR versus a typical lease is always a bit more risk and a little more work because it's not guaranteed, and every location and season is different and dynamic. So you also have to keep in mind the budgets, which we'll get into in a future chapter, as you need to cover all of the utilities, landscaping, and maintenance. And part of this world is understanding that it's not always consistent, but over the year, it typically outperforms your normal leases dramatically and provides so much more flexibility and options as you go throughout the year.
Yes, so keep in mind, like any business, there is a ramping up period, but if you're committed and you're all in, you really can do so well. So the more reviews you have, the more you can charge, and the more your listing will show up, and the more your occupancy will increase. So for example, when I first listed my home, I was getting $3,000 a month when I did a whole month rental, but after 5 years of getting 5-star reviews, becoming a super host, and raising my rates, I now get $16,000 a month. And mind you, this was my current home, so it wasn't just a short-term rental. It does not have to take you 5 years. This was my home property and I was totally learning, so this course will really accelerate your process, especially if you have a separate rental property that's just for short-term rentals. But this is a critical part of running an STR and why some people give up. We see it all the time. So we want to provide you with all of the steps to set up your listing for optimal results coming up in the course that will contribute to your success and make this process faster.
Yes, absolutely. Got to get these things up and running.
Yes. And be patient.
Yeah. So for my Ben houses, as I've ran them for several years now, I know that the summer months from June through August generate over 50% of the profit for the year, while the other months are subjected to spring break, major holidays, and the ski season, depending on the weather, which one is available, and everything's variable. So that is always different year to year. So I've learned to use it myself during the slow season. I always suggest that and capitalize on the slower times and plan my trips around when it's not rented as much because you're not making any money, so that's a great time to use it. So since I use Vacasa as my vacation management company, they use a proprietary cost analysis that helps to maximize bookings based on supply and demand. So it's not always as personal use. It's not always as personal as running your STR yourself, but it does make things much more turnkey. So when you run a STR yourself, you are a lot more involved with the guests, and there's more, person-to-person communication that you do directly. And also, managing your photography and photos. A lot of times I've learned with Vacasa that was turnkey before, and then there are a lot of property management companies out there, and usually the point of doing a turnkey system like that is that you don't really have to think about anything. So they'll come out and do your photography. Again, this all depends on which company you start with, but I know with Vacasa, they do your photography, and they pretty much handle anything. If they kind of give you a window on if anything's broken or if something needs service, they'll usually just do it for you unless it's over a certain amount. So you can give them a dollar number like $500, and if it's over $500, they'll call you first, because you could be traveling somewhere and a faucet breaks and it's a $200 fix. And so you basically are set up for them to just go and do it, and then you'll just see that on your bill. So these are some of the pros and cons. If you have your own place, you can do the stuff yourself, you can manage the guests yourself, but it is more work. So again, it just really depends on the scenarios that we went over, so you have to make that decision.
It really depends on if you live in the same area that you have your property, and if you want to put in the work or you want somebody else to just handle the whole thing. So with Justin's property, it's in a whole nother state, and he doesn't want to do the work. So it's perfect for him to have a management company. For the property that I have in El Segundo, I live here. It is my home property. I have other places in the area that I can go, and I don't mind doing the work on it. So that's why I like to do it myself. But as I get more and more properties, if you get properties that are out of your area, I would absolutely do it the way that Justin does, because it is so much easier and has a lot of benefits. But it really depends, and finding a place closer to where you live can be easier to do it by yourself. But if not, you really do need somebody in the area, whether it's somebody that that can at least handle any emergencies, or a property management company, because if somebody has a problem and you're not available and you can't go there, then that could really affect your reviews negatively, and that can really hurt your profits and how much your listing is being shown, which can affect your occupancies and your whole business. So this is a really important part, but it's easy, and we walk you through all of it, and it's absolutely doable, and you can be as hands-on or hands-off as you want to be.
Yeah, and I think just to elaborate on her point, is just to keep in mind that you're gonna have problems. I mean, even if it's your own house, you're gonna have a water leak. You're gonna have, someone get locked out, right? Like a guest. We'll talk about some tips on, making sure you have a stash key and a keypad and things like that. And there's a lot of ways to kind of control this, but you're gonna have unannounced problems that happen. And so, if you're there and you're living in the house or you're nearby, that's easy to work with. But if not, if you're not doing the full Vacasa kind of turnkey thing, because it is a a higher rate as far as what they charge to do the full service, you can kind of find something in between, like a local property manager. Usually it's under 10%, maybe 7-8%. It's hard to know, they're always variable, but at least you have somebody on call, or just a best friend, you know. But again, remember, if you are using friends or family, that if they're not home also, or they're out of town, you just want to make sure that your property is bulletproof, and if anything goes sideways, that you got it handled.
But you're going to need to deal with this kind of stuff whether you had a long-term lease or an STR anyways, so this is just really part of setting up a property. So overall, doing an STR over a long-term lease has clear, optimal benefits, and it can be a little more time and work if you run it yourself, like we said, versus having a long-term lease, but you can always hire that property management company or someone else to do the work, just like you hire employees at a company. And from our experience, it's well worth it. So we hope that this helps you to make your decisions if you're figuring out whether to have one or multiple properties turned into an STR, or whether you're looking to start a property as an STR business. And we're here for you every step of the way.
Yep. So we'll see you in the next chapter.